So, continuing on with regulatory constraints, the way that state regulators ensure that their insurers are abiding by their department's guidelines are through these market conduct examinations. Specifically, they're going to be looking at their sales and advertising methods, their underwriting, rate making, and claim handling. And while this seems fairly straightforward, keep in mind that insurance regulation is not uniform across states. So, for companies that write business in many different states, this becomes very complex for. So moving on to personnel, which is the third constraint listed in the book, you have to realize that your underwriters have to be talented and knowledgeable in the line of business they're operating on. While that's very obvious, it also is very important to be very specified in the line of business that you're trying to write. So like one personal anecdote is that at the company that I worked for 2 summers ago, I worked in the property division, which is already kind of focused in on one aspect of business, but within that property division, they had a flood expert, they had a fire expert, they had a California earthquake expert. So they would all work together on all these different accounts to bring the best possible expertise to the table. And the last constraint that our book talks about is reinsurance. It doesn't go into these three main types of reinsurance, but I figured I'd list them. There's facultative, which is account by account basis. Then there's treaty, which is basically based on an entire portfolio, and they're generally in yearly contracts. And there's retrocessional reinsurance, which is reinsurance for the reinsurers. Basically, what this chapter in the book is essentially focused on are these treaty reinsurers, because they're talking about how treaty reinsurers will place restrictions on different classes of business that they'll offer coverage for. So if you're an insurer and you want to buy treaty reinsurance, but they're like, we will not support you in any sawmill operations or something random like that, you can still write that business, but that business will not be covered by your reinsurer. And another little caveat that many reinsurers do is they want to make sure that the forms are favorable for them, not for the buyer of insurance. So many brokers will try to push these manuscript forms that have a little more open terms for their clients and will offer more coverage for them. And so some reinsurers will say, if that account is on a broker manuscript form, then we're not going to cover any losses for that account at all, even if they would have been covered on our form.